Sami Yusuf using his opening monologue to show support for Palestine is more in line with the origins of with not only SNL but with late night TV as a whole. Like, as you remember from, I think, what was it, a month ago, when for some reason Amy Schumer on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon had caused a lot of controversy, resulting in the Tonight Show turning off its comments, is absolutely like hypocritical in a way to the original host of the show that would later become known as the Tonight Show, Steve Allen, who was a comedian, often would push like the boundaries and was pretty anti-censorship, along with a lot of the other comedians of that like time period, to include like Lenny Bruce, Joan Rivers, etc. Comedy has mostly been known as a form of social critique. And with the same with when SNL began, where if you go back and watch any of like the older episodes, some would probably take offense to how things are addressed, especially nowadays. But originally, was there actually the intention of offending anybody, or was it a more accurate representation of, at that time period, of people trying to bring awareness to what was happening in society, but also being pretty brash? Like, a reoccurring character when Jimmy Carter was president was Lorraine Newman as his daughter, Amy Carter, and she was a young child at the time, but they would always make fun of her. Or there'd be Garrett Morris doing news for the hard of hearing, where during the weekend update segment of like news of the week, Chevy Chase would just state something and Garrett Morris would just shout what was just said. Obviously, were they trying to offend those who were hard of hearing? Probably not. Or during Weekend Update between Jane Curtin and Dan Aykroyd, during the segment of Point Counterpoint, a topic will be presented by Aykroyd, and then Jane Curtin would start with addressing the topic, but then turn it into a direct attack on Dan Aykroyd, laying into him pretty good, and his retort to her would be him referring to her as a ignorant slut, and what many in the modern day would consider to be outright misogyny. I don't think many would agree that it was trying to intentionally hurt either side. But more recently, in the last decade or so, there's been the criticism of how SNL isn't good anymore. And from observations, it appears the influence of social media and how it can cause topics or events to move through the public eye quicker could be a factor, as well as having a better grasp on what the general public likes and dislikes in regards to basically everything. So with the more recent SNL, a lot of the jokes or skits just seem completely out of touch, because instead of back in the day, like prior to social media, SNL would be a weekly thing to tune in to hear some really good satirical takes of the events that were happening in our society and in the world. Now it's just becoming another platform that's just trying to get the overall general public's attention to hopefully stay relevant, regardless of it having a long historical influence on American culture. But as seen with, for example, the Amy Schumer appearance, or J-Lo, or some other very big name or big platformed people, there's been a push towards a censorship where you cannot criticize, critique, or even bash these public figures without any sort of distinct reason. Even if it's just people putting out their opinions towards them, even if it's not the most prettiest thing.